for this program put on by Clearco to feature our top and best founders, our top and best partners. Today, we are going to be talking about how to build strong communities. We are joined by Archie Clay, the co-founder of Where BRIMS. Archie is somebody that I have enjoyed connecting with since the first moment. Like as you go on through life, there are people in your life that you will remember because they made an impact immediately. Archie is one of them. I remember hearing him speak at one of our internal town halls, and I was so inspired. I said, I need to talk to this guy. We need to figure out how we can collaborate more deeply and start to build community together. So, coming into this partner pulse, I gave Archie a call. He said yes. So, he is joining us today. Archie, I'd love for you to give your background, introduce yourself, and then would love to jump into the conversation around how to build strong communities and a bit more about what it is you're up to.
No, for sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you guys for having me on this partner post. It's always good to be able to, give my energy, give my love, what I have for myself and my business to the world. So my foundation kind of starts from I kind of am a hustler by, I guess, trade. I just remember when I was younger, just selling bean pies, carrot cakes, and cookies and things of that nature, trying to make a little money on the side. And as I look back, it just realized that that was a part of my ethos and part of my journey of who I was, right? But didn't realize that at a young age, right? But if you fast forward, I went to Tuskegee, graduated 2012 with a sales and marketing degree. Then after that, I kind of went into HR operations for retailers like Target, Burlington, and Marshalls and JCPenney's. But through that, I realized that I wasn't fulfilled in my journey of who I was and what I wanted to do. So kind of having that journey in between that time period, I lost my grandmother when I was in college to cancer. And I think that kind of just opened up my eyes to me really wanting to kind of start a legacy for my family because I realized that we really didn't have a legacy. Let's be very transparent. We didn't have a legacy. And I thought that it was important for me to kind of figure out what that legacy looked like for myself that it kind of aligns back to my family. So as fast forward to 2016, I thought about the idea of creating a hat company and didn't really know much about hats and what that looked like. But I was like, man, I think I can. So there were a couple of things that were missing. First and foremost, there was no representation of me within the industry, which I didn't like, right? We wear hats, we drive the culture of fashion, but there's not anybody at the top that's running these companies, right? You think about Lids, you think about Graham Brothers, Stetsons, Baileys, like all these major hat companies that have been around since the 1900s. It's none of us, right? So that was the main thing that's like, man, I think that's something that I want to be a part of and be a part of the growth. And I think the second thing was just no newness within the industry. The same styles were created over and over again, and there hasn't been any disruption within that industry. And I think going back to it, just realizing that, hey, like every industry has had disruption. You think about Virgil, you think about Fear of God, you think about Rude, all these clothing brands that are now new have disrupted the industry and gave a different flair what that looks like, right? But that hasn't happened within the hat industry. And I think it's time for a change. So from there, it's just like, man, how do we create this company and create this ethos of a brand that aligns back to us? So we align it back to family, right? So when you think about 3 principles of what we represent is faith, family, and confidence, right? So when you think about faith, you have to have faith when it comes to building a company, raising a family, becoming successful. Like you have to have all those things, right? But we want to use that to fuel us through our customers, right? And we think about family. Family is the background and the foundation of who we are as a brand. But majority of the time, that's the foundation of everybody. Without family, like how do you really push forward? Like you need, and family doesn't mean blood. It's friends. It's people around you that are motivating and inspiring you. And that's the foundation of who we are. Like without our family and friends pushing us and coming to our pop-ups and being there and supporting us, being the only people at the pop-up sometimes. Like that's a sense of motivation to, say, hey, like maybe I have something special. Maybe I have something that I can share with the world. And last but not least, confidence. Without confidence, like you're not going to make it. I really think confidence is the deciding factor of success, right? I think that you can be very educated and intelligent, but if you don't have the confidence in yourself and say, I can do whatever I want to do, then what is it, right? So for us, it's all about confidence. Like we have this slogan where we say we exist to instill unapologetic confidence in everyone one brand at a time. And we mean that. Like, of course we want to sell product, but the main ethos of us is like, hey, we realize that people struggle with their confidence and who they are sometimes, right? So if I can make a product for you that make you feel special and make you look in the mirror, it's like, man, that hat looks good, or that product was good, right? Or where BRIMS makes me feel good, right? That's the whole focus and principles of what we represent, right? And I think, in addition to the 3 pillars, is that community is everything, right? We were built on community, right? I remember a story where when COVID first hit, this is where I realized, this is when I realized that I had a strong community. When COVID first hit, we had just released a hat around January, and we were getting ready to start shipping out orders, and then COVID hit, right? We had over 300 orders, pre-orders ready to go, and we wouldn't be able to ship them out anymore until like 4 months later. And we literally only had like one return out of those numbers. And that made me realize that people really rock with our brand, but most importantly, love who we are. The fact that you are willing to wait 4 months for a product that you may not get, it just tells me that, hey, first of all, we have something special, and we've done a great job communicating with our customers, right? And I think that was the alignment to myself to say, hey, not only do we have something special, but we have a very, very strong community. It made me realize that community is the guiding force of us as a brand, but honestly, us as a people, right? Even for myself and working with my own brand, I realized the community is important around us and what that looks like. So when we think about community, and of course, Clearco does it very well, is that community is the guiding force of Clearco, right? And how they bring in individuals and how they fund. So I'm just so happy to be a part of this, this foundation, and be able to open up the floodgates for Black founders, and them having the opportunity to have access. I think that's always um, the problem, is having access, right? Especially as Black founders, right? We learn over time and learn through these hoops and ropes of how we get there, right? And same thing for me. Like, I've learned over these last 5 years of having my company and building all these different relationships, and just realizing that, wow, there's a whole ecosystem of people that want to help. You just got to find it. So,
Oh my God. You hit on so many things that resonate, right? Family, legacy, breaking through, giving back to community, giving back to Black founders. And let's just put Black founders in a category of maybe, marginalized or underrepresented, or sometimes under, and often under resourced, right? Historically. And so being able to have this conversation right now with you, you're speaking to every pillar that kind of comes together under the Clearco mission. It is about elevating these communities across the globe that are misunderstood, sitting in niche categories, and being able to at least offer the door of financing, but beyond that, offer the door of community, offer the door of education, and showing you what's possible. When you expand your horizons around what is possible through exposure and through that connection, where you see Archie as somebody down the line that you might want to emulate and grow into, right? Like, now all of a sudden you have a North Star, and you're like, that I look like Archie. I what he's saying resonates. This is a plight that I am currently in, and he has fought through. Like, that is the goal, and I'm so excited that we're having this conversation. I'd like to go back to the point and moment where you decided and you had this epiphany around legacy, and like what was going on in your life at that point. Because to me, that is the defining moment, right? That's what prompts somebody to fight through and tear down the wall, to say, like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to take a different path. I'm going to think about and contemplate what this could look like for my family generations ahead. But I would love to just get a picture of what was happening in your life. I know you mentioned your grandma.
no,
So
man, I think during that time period, it was a transition in that I don't want to be basic. I hate to use that word, but I use a different word. I don't want to be average. I want to be non-average, right? I think for me, it's just like, how, if you're really going to build generational wealth, that means that you got to think differently, right? You can't think like everyone else. And I think for me, it's like, even myself, I was taught that, hey, I'm going to a great school. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to go to get a good job, 6 figures, whatever that looks like. I'm going to work, 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 work. And I get a family, picket fence. I live happily ever after, right? I'm not saying all those things are not great things, but why limit yourself to just this one tunnel of ideas, right? Why not reach out there, whatever you want to do. I think it's honestly, I realize that it's a thing of understanding that I can do anything I really want to do. And I really believe that, right? Once you have the idea or the motivation to do so, and it works differently for everybody. My grandmother passed away, that was my motivation. That's just how it worked. You know what I'm saying? And for me, at that moment, I was just like, man, like, what can I do different? And no, mommy, it didn't come right at that moment when she passed away. That was 2010, right? It took 6 years for me to get to that point. But along that way, there were different periods, right? Like where I had 2 line brothers that parents own multi-million-dollar companies, right? Where I was like, I never seen that before, right? So that's having exposure, right? Me being exposed to these different things, right? Where I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know Black people had multi-million-dollar companies. You know what I mean? So it's like me actually seeing it and going to their house and saying, whoa, like this is something that's possible, right? And I think once you have exposure to these things, now you really start thinking, because majority of the time you're very educated, you're thinking, but you just don't have exposure to it, access to these things. So once you have exposure and access to these things, you want to have those things. So it's like, now, how do I get these things? So I think at that point in time, my thoughts in my head was like, I want it. So how do I get it ethically? You know what I mean? Like, how do I get to that stage in my life where I feel good financially, you know, but more importantly for me, it's like, it's changing the dynamic of family, right? I grew up in a single home, family home. My mom was the light, right? She did remarry, but at the same time, it's just like, how do you change that dynamic? Like, that's something that all families do. But unfortunately, like for me, my mom was different. Most moms are not in their child's, you know, as critical as like, yo, you gonna do this, like you gonna get pushed. So I think for me, that confidence barrier was always high, but it's also figuring out how to navigate the different avenues that came my way. And I think at that time, just like, yo, I want to create a company. I don't know what it look like. I never done before, but what is gonna hurt? Like, I'm not happy in my current job. So why does it matter what happens or not? Even if I fail, I still have the job. Like, I think people gotta realize, like, Steve Harvey said it. I've been listening to Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey says, like, you're gonna always be able to get a job. Like, that's the easy. Like, if you have a degree and you're educated and you're smart, you're gonna always get a job. That's just, you can always, it may take you a little second, but you're gonna get a job. Like, there's so many other resources now to be able to make the same money you made and be able to do it. Right. So for me, it's like, let's take the risk and make it happen.
Love that. It's funny. I had a very similar moment in my career where I looked down the line and I said, in 10 years, if I work really hard, that is who I can become. And having that realization where that wasn't where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be in the life I wanted to live was the catalyst to push me through. And to me, at that time, I was lucky. I actually got involved in an accelerator in New York, and I was embraced by a guy named Murat, who runs an accelerator called ERA. And he said, look, sit here, use this desk. And I was still at that company, but I had all this exposure to CEOs of different tech startups.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get the bug and you understand the passion and you understand the mechanics of, first of all, like, no one really knows, everyone's trying to figure it out. And secondly, you said this before, there are so many people out there who want to jump in with you, and they're just looking for somebody who's excited and has passion, and everything else kind of follows suit. People want to go where the energy is, where the light is, right? So I'm curious to know, when you were making that transition and you said, okay, I'm going to be different. I'm going to change the direction of my family. I'm going to be someone else than what my generations before me were and what they represented, right? Who did you lean on, and how did you break through? And how we talk, this conversation's about community. So I'm curious to know if there was any communities that were really supportive.
Man, I think honestly, my mom, to be real with you. I remember it was my mom, and honestly at that time it was my girlfriend, where those are the individuals that, because it was a very scary moment at that time, because I had built the company, but I wasn't full-time just yet. I was still trying to figure out, but for some reason I kept losing jobs. Like, I don't know what was going on. Like, I've been working like for 4 years straight, no problems, had a good job, but I was losing jobs left to right, like for real. And I think in the moment it was just like, I just need to pay attention to the signs, right? And at that moment I didn't know if they were good signs. I didn't know if they were like Archie, you need to find a better job, or Archie, you need to focus on this. But I think it was, of course, them, but it was also guys. It's like, yo, pay attention to the signs. Like, I'm really giving you these signs and say, hey, it's not going to be easy. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be easy. I think that's why I was going through all the different things, whereas it's like, it's not going to be easy. But I think that where BRIMS is the foundation of your wealth building success. And I really believe that now, because without where BRIMS, it didn't, where BRIMS opened up all the other opportunities that have come my way, right?
Mhm.
It will continue to open up all the other opportunities come away. Like where BRIMS is not the only thing I'll be doing in my life. I already know that. Now I know what that looks like, but I just know that, I realized that I think I'm a builder. I'm a builder. Like me and my line brother, we built the first ever sneaker insurance company last year, and we raised $1 million. So it's just like I'm realizing that my talents are not just where BRIMS is building companies, maybe. So I'm trying to, and maybe having a VC in the future. It's I think now it's like the opportunities are limitless in my eyes. And I'm grateful for those individuals, because without the individuals to keep you motivated and confident, because when you go through periods where you feel like you're not as confident, you need somebody to tell you like, yo, I think you got it. Like, don't trip. I think you'll be good. You know what I mean? I remember when I first quit my job, I was at work, and I had quit. I had like maybe a couple days left. And my mom had called me. She's like, she's checking in with me. I think it was on break or something. Like, how you doing? I'm good. She's like, kind of, you feel different. I was like, I'm just chilling at work. And then she's like, did you quit your job? I was like, yeah, I did. She was like, oh, okay. But she said was, she was like, man, I support you, and just let me know whatever you need. And that was the check mark right there. It was like, all right, I'm good. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Mama knows, and if she's got your back and you have that check mark, that's
I can do whatever the fuck I want to do. At the end of the day, like that's was the energy I felt. And then to have my girl on my side too, that was another pillar of energy too. It's like, yo, all right, let's make this shit happen. Let's really push the button and push the envelope. And I think now here the fire stems from those individuals, because at the end of the day, you want them to feel good. You want them to you want to say that your support and your motivation really made an impact, right?
Mm.
If you look in this period now, it has, but it's like, how do I take it to the next level? Now for me, it's like, of course, building where it burns, but how do I fuel them? How do I give them the resources to build what they want to build? Like my job now in my head is like, I want to be able to say, if my girl came to me and said, I want to do this, I got resources for you. So like, let's make it happen. My mom said, I want to build this app. Like, okay, cool. I know somebody that can build this app in a month. Like, here we go. Are you serious? I want to have the ecosystem to be able to give whatever I need to give to my family. And that's wealth building. It's not always financial. It's access. We'll go back. Most African American families don't have access, right? So when you have access, that changes the whole trajectory of your life, right? It's not all just about money, right? You can have money, but if you ain't got no access, that money don't go nowhere. It just stays in the pocket. Back in the day, you put your money under your bed, and that money just stays there. You know what I mean? So I don't want the money just to stay under the bed. How do we distribute that through an ecosystem where we're able to make more money for our future?
Mm. Oh my God, you're hitting on so many different points, and even the part that you said about, you know, you lost all these jobs, but that's a signal, right? There's so many interesting signals that you can look at and take meaning from and decide what path you're going to go on. So that just resonates on so many levels, because I had very similar experiences, and it definitely led me to the path of entrepreneurship and building Founder Made, which brought me here. So I so appreciate that, and something that you and I connected on and obviously brought us to this conversation. My background is in community building. I built Founder Made. You are involved in so many communities. And before jumping on the line today, we were talking through some of them, one of which is Goody Nation. You're involved with Shopify for Startups, New Voices Family, Trailblazers, Plywood. I'd love to talk about those organizations and how you're participating and what kind of value you're getting, and how you see that trickling down into like the younger Archie and where those opportunities are.
No, I think those, like you think about the Gathering Spot. The Gathering Spot was the first, I guess, organization I joined. When I came back to Atlanta. Like I was one of the founding members of the Gathering Spot, and I think the Gathering Spot just built an ecosystem of like-minded individuals under one house. And like I said, it's all about exposure and opportunity, right? You give me exposure, you give me opportunity, I'm gonna eat it, right? It's just pretty simple. It's self-explanatory. Like I feel like now it's like you eat what you kill what you eat, right? So for me, it's like these different programs and opportunities. I was in an interview for Goody Nation. I told him, man, like my goal is to learn. Like I'm trying to learn as much as I can. Like, and I'm a visual learner. Like I like to be in the present. I like to be in the area. That's kind of how I learn. And seeing people doing better than me, that's how I learn. It's like, yo, it's a motivational driver for me. You know what I mean? So I think these organizations allow me to be my best self, but it also allows me to build community within myself as well and around me, right? Because all these individuals they see something in me, right? But I see something in them. You know what I'm saying? Like I look at these individuals like, oh, Archie's so great. I'm like, I'm still learning. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. Still, you know what I mean? Even though my company is in Nordstrom's and even Marcus, but we're still trying to figure out because until we trying to hit 1 million, you know what I'm saying? We trying to hit 5, 10, 50. Like I'm trying to run it all the way up, you know? But in order to run it all the way up, I have to be prepared and understand how to do that because the more money I make, the more, let's be real, the more, let's say, bad things happen, more opportunities happen. Like you got to be prepared for every avenue to understand that it's not all sweet and peachy when you're making millions. You know what I'm saying? The more power comes, we make more money. Right. So for me, it's like being prepared for that and being around people that are already getting that. Right. So I can learn from them, like, hey, how do I navigate this situation? If something comes where I need to get a lawyer, like who you recommend for that? You know what I mean? So it's having an ecosystem of things preparing me for these potential opportunities that may come my way, good or bad. So I'm prepared for and ready and not making the same mistakes that all these other founders make before they got to their millions. Right. So for me, I look at these opportunities and these platforms as honestly God, right? God is giving me these opportunities, up to me to utilize these. And even the call we had yesterday, I'll be real, like even though I was excited about being around the Clearco thing, it's like, but me hearing these stories about how they're scouting and doing, I'm like, yo, okay, I've been playing around with this, right? So sometimes you need a little push and a little motivation to say, okay, and I think being a part of these conversations, you meet other people and you meet their perspective, and I think the perspective of how they think sometimes align back to you. You're like, all right, cool. I can literally be the same thing for me. I feel like I do very transparent. Like I feel like I'm a beast, but in order for me to be a better beast, I have to continue to learn. So that's what I look at. I look at the Goody Nation, Clearco, and Shopify for Startups. Like I look at all these platforms as a way to be my best self, and that aligns back to curated access.
Yeah. You said something interesting, which is at every stage, you're aligning yourself with somebody maybe that's a little further along, that's already in it, right? And I think a lot of people, there can be this preconception around, I need to know everything. I need to be an expert in something to be able to do that, right?
No.
And so sometimes, right? And I think something I've been thinking a lot about, and this is so funny, it goes into a couple different things. Look, like you stress yourself out and you block yourself from beginning when you think that you need to be an expert in something. There's like so much on the spectrum of quote unquote expert, but it really is, it's about the system, and it's about being there with other people at a very similar stage to get people to the next stage. And there's community at every stage, right? And so being a company that's doing 10K a month is very different than the information you need at $100 million a month, right? Or whatever the number is. So I'd love to know from you how you think about these different stages and how you're reinvesting in the communities that you're building, right? Like you're touching probably entrepreneurs, or you're getting approached from entrepreneurs that are maybe a little earlier, but then you're kind of bridging up and getting support from the next community. Like what is the Archie tribe, and how are you reinvesting in that community, and what are you doing to keep them close and build that cohort, right? Like to build that loyalty to you and you to them, and how are you nurturing that?
So I think the first thing is it kind of starts with mindset, right? So what I realize is that and this is like the last 3 years, is that the individuals that are wealthy are not the smartest people. Right. So when I realized that, I was like, all right, cool. Basically, what they do is they hire all the smart people. Right. So for me, to answer your question of how do I communicate with other founders and individuals that want to be, or trying to get to that same level I'm trying to get to, is really saying, yo, like, just because you're smart don't mean that you're gonna be at the top. Simple. Right. So like for me, I don't gotta be the smartest person in the room, but I'll be the hungriest person in the room. Right. And the hunger and the passion aligns back to becoming the best version of myself, because I want to get better. Right. So when I'm speaking to people, like even having a conversation like this, is like, just because you're smart don't mean you're gonna be rich. It's simple. But I think what makes you different is like, I know I'm smart, but I want to get better. So I gotta acknowledge that I'm not great in everything. I know I'm not great in everything, right? But I know that about myself, right? So I think for me, when I communicate to other founders, they ask questions like, yo, like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to have these to have problems and situations that but you gotta be able to pivot, right? You gotta be able to pivot, and you gotta be able to make things happen. Right. And you can't be so focused on like, I gotta be this person, I gotta do this, I gotta do this right. Like, I think entrepreneurship is a skill, right? And I teach it to my students. Entrepreneurship is a skill, right? Once you grasp that skill, and you don't gotta be an entrepreneur to utilize entrepreneurship skills. Once you take the skills of an entrepreneur and you add it to your ethos of you'll be an unstoppable person, because once you realize that you don't have to be perfect in every single avenue of your life. But only thing is, like, I don't want to be perfect, but I want to be great. Being great and being perfect is not the same thing in my life, right? Because being great means that you want to continue to get better and better and better. So you're massaging and molding your skills over time. So having conversation with this person, going to dinner with this person, being in this cohort, what I'm saying? You'll learn as much as possible. So when I'm talking to founders and individuals that talk to me, us, or about the brand, it's like, yo, follow the journey and the process and get better. But what that looks like is like, you got to be able to take feedback. You got to even getting feedback from your customers, getting feedback from your team. Like, one thing I do is, like, my team knows I'm an aggressive individual, but what I do is I try to make sure that they just understand. I try to make sure I communicate my thoughts to them of like what I've been thinking about this potential idea or whatever that looks like. And I make sure I tell people that want to be founders or want to be aspiring entrepreneurs or just want to be great. It's like, really just try to get out your mind to thinking that you know everything, right? And once you realize that, that's when your life changes. And I think for me, it's like, I don't know everything, but I know that I'm willing to learn as much as I can and connect with people that know more than me. And I'm okay with that, because I'm gonna be wealthy. That's gonna happen. It's like, how do I get there? But how do I get there? Through community.
I love that. To me, like, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about some of the main points that you've said. I mean, you've touched on family, you've touched on legacy, two big drivers. It's the quest to being different and breaking out and changing the mold. It's the quest to elevating yourself so that you can elevate the greater group, right? The people who can look to you and say, like, I look like him. His message resonates. That journey is where I came from and where I want to go. Like, that is so cool. And then beyond that, right? Now you're in a place where you've learned a bit and being able to bring that back. And I think what also sticks out is the detachment from perfection, but the attachment to hunger, passion, ambition, and allowing people to be their authentic selves. Like, that is what I'm pulling from this, allowing people to be their authentic selves by you being your authentic self, because you're not perfect, but you know that you're committed to growth,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that is very cool, and that is what this is about, which is why we're so excited to be working with you and building this community. Do you have any final thoughts? We have 1 minute left. So sad that this is wrapping, because this has been such an inspiring morning. I wish I could spend every morning like this. But do you have any final thoughts, comments to share with our community of entrepreneurs and investors, partners?
No, please follow us at wearbrims.com.
There you go. There it is.
wearbrims.com at wearbrims. But no, I think, man, at the end of the day, if anybody's in there on that last little trigger of trying to figure it out, like, don't be afraid and take the leap to make it happen.
That's awesome. Guys, anyone who's been listening in who enjoyed this conversation, please get in touch with us at Clearco, in touch with Archie Clay. He's out of Atlanta. He's involved with incredible communities out there. If you're contemplating an entrepreneurial path and journey, please get in touch. We have so many resources out here waiting for you. We have people like Archie who can lend an ear and tell you you are on the right path and just to keep going. So thank you for those who tuned in. And Archie, thank you so much for this. This has been amazing.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Everyone who's listening in, see you next time. Take care.